Hello everyone. It's Eve here with you again, and today I invited Adrian back to sit with me one more time and discuss the latest webinar from the series of ECR webinars on using video in retail. And this one was around central monitoring centers, or so-called video hubs. Adrian, please introduce yourself first.
Hi Eve, yes, nice to see you again. My name is Professor Adrian Beck. I'm an emeritus professor at the University of Leicester and also an academic advisor to the ECR Retail Loss Group.
And before we jump into the topic, can you please tell us a little bit more about the research which you conducted earlier in the year? And also, I know that you sent out the survey just before the webinar. Maybe share with us some outcomes. Were there any surprises for you before we got into the session?
Yes, sure. We published some research in the summer, which was really quite a considerable review of the way in which retailers around the world were utilizing various forms of video technologies. And certainly one of the strategic trends that we found in that research was the growing use of video centralized hubs. And so we looked at why that particular trend was growing and also how retailers were using it. And prior to the webinar that we ran this week, we also just a little survey of those who were planning to attend the session to look at their use of central command centers. And we found that of those who said they're attending, about 3/4 said that they already had some form of centralized command center in place. And that the main reasons that they seem to have these centers was focused upon carrying out strategic reviews of incidents that happened in their organizations, but also using it as real-time monitoring hubs as well. And is that something that you see particularly in your organization as well, Eve, in terms of the customers that are using systems that you provide?
Yes, Adrian. Actually, with my customers, I see there's a clear division in three cases, I would say. So the first type of the central monitoring center is normally for live monitoring, where they have connection to the store staff or the guards, and if something suspicious happens, they're actually trying to prevent it. I also see that those are normally outsourced and operated by system integrators or special companies who do that, which actually limits the usage of such monitoring center because it can be reused for other company needs, for example, for operation or for marketing, when the applications can be done through video. Second type of monitoring center, normally when they use it only for forensic search, so there's no live monitoring, but when you need to combine, for example, transactional information with video, this is where it gets very useful. Again, that one is also a little bit of underutilizing the technology in my personal point of view. And the third one, it's where it's all coming together. So this is where a retailer actually owns this video hub, where they do the live monitoring, but they try to minimize amount of information which goes to the operators by adding video analytics or alarms and some other subsystems and sensors. They also use that for forensic investigation, and normally the data is interconnected with POS and so on. And those centers are able to provide the valuable information to other departments. So, for example, if we want to do the people counting from the cameras from the entrance, if we want to understand queues or any other operational needs. Right now with COVID is also quite important, the proximity reporting, or simply to comply with regulations. And I see that those third type, which is quite comprehensive, and in this case they see that they can use more qualified operators as well. It all comes of the leadership on the retail loss prevention team. So it's those who are having, from another webinar, we had the webinar on the video tsar. So I believe that those have this leaders who can manage this cross-organizational collaboration. So what did we see during the webinar? Who was talking, and what did we take away from that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm finding these sessions really fascinating, actually, Eve. I think it's really, really interesting to be able to hear from retailers who are using video technologies in all sorts of different ways and understanding this broader picture. And I think to hear it from the retailers themselves, I think is just some really great insights are coming from these sessions. And this one, as you say, was very much focused upon listening to a couple of retailers about how they were using their centralized hubs. And so we heard from Walmart, and we also heard from Boots Alliance based in the UK. And they offer two different perspectives in terms of how they were using these systems. And what we heard from Walmart was, the sheer scale of what their operation has to look after. We all know how big Walmart are as an organization, and it was really writ large in terms of the scale and extent of the operation that they have to run through their security center. I think what's clear from this is that security centers are not new. Retailers have had security centers for a long time. I think what's new now about this is the growing integration of video into these to provide additional capacity and capability in these spaces. And what we really heard from both of these companies was how that integration of video really enhanced the capacity of these functions within these businesses to deliver tremendous value to the organizations. And we heard how the retail landscape is changing, and with that becomes a very different range of risks that retailers now have to face. And certainly both retailers provided a wealth of experience around how these video command centers could begin to help them manage this much more complicated and risky environment that retailers now find themselves in.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And also, I think that when I was asked what are the other applications from another verticals retailers could bring into the video hubs, I actually mentioned one of the business case which we worked with one of the German banks, and it was around usage of the proper health monitoring of the system, because even like right now, we unfairly forget the basic stuff. And for me, understanding the cybersecurity and understanding the system is working correctly in terms of it's looking at the right place, the video quality is the same. It's so basic, but it's really, really in many cases forgotten. So just to give you an overview, what I answered on the webinar, it was when you have an audit on the weekly basis, just to have a look for several minutes on if the cameras are monitoring correctly, you would need to pay system integrator around 80 euros for the working hour, which actually comes up on the 100 locations around 400,000 per year. When you bring it in the central monitoring hub, if you don't have any automation, you would need just maybe 5 hours per week, which brings the cost down to 20,000 from 400,000. So this is the first business case around centralization on so basic matter. And then when you actually automate it and make software do the job, it goes down to 6,000 euros. So from 400,000. And this is something which is very easy to do, and also that will save potentially when situations when something happened and the camera is monitoring the wall for the last 2 weeks. And this is what we see in retail, because in reality, in 99% of the cases, nothing is happening. People are not trying to steal all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So basic needs to be in place. So all of the applications and great features which come further, yes, but let's start sort the basics and make sure that we are already making money on sorting those basics as well.
Yeah, I think what we heard was that it can often be a challenge to work through the return on investment on these centres, because a number of the benefits, certainly that what we heard from Boots, for instance, where they were using it in a very innovative way to try and tackle the problem of violence against staff in their stores, is to use it in real time, where centralized staff could actually dial up the video system in a store and engage with an offender who is potentially threatening or causing actual violence or verbal abuse to staff. And that was seen as providing a real value to the organization, but actually putting a dollar value to that sort of outcome is actually really very difficult, because how do you put a price on a member of staff who hasn't been traumatized through an incident of violence or verbal abuse happening? So I think retailers need to think through how they measure the value that can come from these sorts of video command centers. Some of them undoubtedly will be very hard measures, such as the ones that you mentioned, and indeed reductions in, for instance, levels of retail loss. But others will be softer, such as how you can make people feel safer and protect the reputation of the organization by being seen to be taking a very proactive and responsible role in looking after your staff and your customers in your organization.
I think we need to make another session or video with you around the KPIs, because this is actually one of the most difficult but the most interesting. How do you help retailers to create this business case, to prove that they need this technology? And with soft indicators, it's very, very difficult, but we need to try. And I believe that the work which ECR are doing is specifically done for retailers to help them to prove their points and to be to bring more value to their boards. Good. So now, what are we waiting for the 20th of January? I believe the next.
Yeah, that's right, Eve. We've got a whole schedule for next year. You've now just added another one, which is great. So we're going to do something around video and KPIs for sure. But the one in January we're looking at is looking at how retailers are beginning to use video analytics in particular. So what are the ways in which they're using this? You know, we've seen as a real growth area in the use of video. What examples can we see in that are happening at the moment in retail organizations, and how they're getting value out of the analytic component that video can bring? So that should be hopefully a great session in the new year.
Interesting. With analytic is always interesting, because there is a very thin line between the business case and how they work and actually the attractiveness of this analytic. It's so many different applications, yes. But then boom, it's just not feasible to implement it. It will be a great discussion, I am sure.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so we will catch up with you a couple of days prior to the session, and we will create another sneak peek. And for now, I will wish you a good weekend, and actually I wish you very happy holidays.
Thank you very much, Eve. You too.
And for everyone who's watching us as well, happy holidays. If I don't see you before, don't forget to like our videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Cheerio.